a fumble. Hey man, check this thing out. This is one world-class piece. Listen to this. Listen to this thing. You're looking at the motorcycle that won the first Super Bowl of motocross at the LA Stadium. It was a world beater. Bombardier, the small company from Canada, kicked everyone's ass on the planet. They kicked the German Makos, the Japanese Honda, Suzuki's, Kawasaki's. And this is an absolute, this bike borders on too nice to ride. By that, I mean, it's an irreplaceable heirloom. It's all original, guys. This is not a restored bike. These are the original tires. This is the last of the bikes from the Randy Gillespie collection. There was no light in the building, and it had the in-floor radiant flooring, so there was no condensation in the air or anything, so it just did not decay at all. It stayed absolutely stunning. Yes, the bike has been ridden, but you can see very little. The original factory decals are on the tank and the side covers. All the cycle parts on this bike, including the tires and the handlebars. Look at these handlebars, guys. These are a Bombardier signature. They're the only company that made bars like this, and they're the only ones that very rarely do we ever see one come in with the original cycle parts, the bars, the levers, the grips, the Magura levers. This came with the best components money could buy, and the motor is an absolute rocket ship. Junior was racing AHRMA a few summers ago, and he had bought from Dom Cilio a pristine low-hour one that he put Olin shocks on, and I rode that thing. This thing's an absolute freaking rocket ship, man. It just keeps revving coming up the driveway here, third gear on the rear wheel. It absolutely hauls ass. The suspension, although it is the standard for 74, standard style beater forks without the long travel leading axle or the laid down. This was the start of the Ford shocks, where they mounted the shock farther forward before they went to the laid down shocks. So it's the engine on par with and better than anything from the 70s, and even today, almost 50 years later, this bike hauls ass even by today's standards. Well, one for one, it's a two-stroke, but the motor is something special. Junior, you want to talk a little bit about the engine on this, because you raced these?
Yeah, the bike we had was like literally pulled out of the crate less than a couple of years ago. This feels like a very modern power plant. A nice fresh MX2. These are absolute rippers, and I think if they were more plentiful, you'd see them more in the vintage racing.
It's very light too. This thing can't weigh 220 pounds. I mean, I can lift this thing like I could definitely bench press this a bunch of times. It's very light.
But everything's solid. The brakes are peak of production for the drum brakes. The rotary valve induction. Can-Am, they figured it out, man. These bikes are just absolutely absurd rocket ships.
It's absolutely a dime piece. I'm going to read to you what we did to the bike. Again, this is exactly how it looked when we got it from Randy. The original tires on it. There's no evidence of dry rot on the tires on the top part right here. But if you were going to race it, you'd probably want to put a modern set of Dunlops on it. But it's ready to take to the racetrack right now, exactly the way it is. Now, we did a bunch of services to it, but this is what we call a preservation service, not a restoration, because obviously the bike's a mint original. Very, very, very rarely do we see a Can-Am come through like this, where it's all original. In fact, this is the first one ever that we've gotten in that was all original. Out of the 4,000 plus bikes that have come through the shop here, and multiple Can-Ams. First thing we did, took the gas tank off, made sure there was no fuel in it, rinsed it out, cleaned it out, make sure it was perfectly cleaned. Any old fuel residue, whatever, was rinsed out. We installed a brand new petcock on it, the original petcock, fuel petcock. Usually, it's not even worth messing with one that old, so we put a brand new one on, along with new fuel lines to make sure the fuel system was intact. The carb was removed, cleaned, serviced, and dialed in perfectly. The air filter was replaced with a new one. The transmission oil was replaced. They cleaned, lubed, and adjusted and serviced all the control cables. The pipe was removed and cleaned. I think the exhaust pipe was painted. I'm not on that sheet yet, but they had the pipe off. So it looks like it was repainted. I haven't got to that page yet. Got 3 pages of work order to go over with you.
Yeah, so the original paint in the engine, which is...
Yeah, the original paint.
You left the mic over there, Bob.
Whoops. I left the mic over here to check it out, but it has the original paint on the motor, but the exhaust system was repainted. We did mix the fuel at 50-1 VP1 along with the oil injector to ensure that everything was working properly, and it is. So carbs totally dialed in. Tires is set the tire pressure at 17 psi. So just a world-class piece, man. World-class. This is absolutely something that should be, preserved and cared for the way we did. So then I went to the detail shop. Ronnie steam cleaned it, hand washed it, degreased it, touched up the paint on the frame and the shocks and the hubs and the foot pegs a little bit. Repainted the exhaust. Then he polished lightly polished the gas tank, taking care not to deface the original decals, the fenders, the triple clamps, the forks, the wheels, the spokes. The chain was cleaned. The sprocket, if you take a zoom in on the sprocket, you can see the sprocket's super clean. The chain guard, all the hardware was cleaned. The rear fender decals, the original rear fender decals had blown off during the washing procedure. So those rear fender decals are reproduction, but the gas tank decals are the originals. And if you zoom in real close, you can see they have patina on them. Replacements are available, but I could not fathom removing a almost 50-year-old set of decals.
The reproduction sets, the orange is more or less like a yellow up top there. You see the difference. So that's how you can tell an original tank. Original tanks like that are basically like non-existent.
Yeah, especially one that doesn't have, it's not all yellowed and dirty looking. If you leave fuel in them for multiple years, Randy drained the fuel out, of course, when we put it in storage, it often discolors the tank. This tank is not discolored like the others that I've seen. So, again, we went right through the bike. All the, every nut and bolt on the bike's been cleaned, polished, adjusted, or something. So, it's been completely serviced as a total of 21 hours labor. Plus the few supplies and parts we had on the bike. So it's ready to go. Good luck finding a nicer one. This is a world-class original, and we know how hard they're getting to find, especially for a low production manufacturer like Can-Am. They weren't pumping out as many, like Honda was pumping out CR125s and 250s. I'm not going to say a dime a dozen because they're really rare now too, because most of them got ridden into the ground, but they had a lower production stats than some of the Japanese. So I can't imagine, well, I'll just straight up and go ahead and say, there's not a 74 250 I've ridden that's as fast as this. None of them. Not stock anyways, and this one's bone stock original. And this is the nicest original unmolested stock. Have we ever got a 74 250 in this nice? We had some 75s and 76s, but not a 74. Certainly not a Can-Am. In any event, it's in a class all of its own, man.
75.
What's that?
Mine was a 75. If that.
Yeah. So as far as the MX2s, this is the finest one we've seen. Check it out. It has the original factory Bombardier decal on the.
Yeah, I was showing that before.
Still on the forks, which is something that would get blown off during power washing. The original Canadian NVSC transport. Speaking of Canada, I'll be heading up to Canada. I have an epic adventure planned to see my friends up north. We might stop by Millar Race Engineering, see Adam Millar and some of the other guys. I got a friend up there that's got some Panthera 625. In any event, I just got my New England tractor trailer training school, passed the course, and got my CDL Class A certification yesterday. So pretty excited about what 2022 is going to bring for us in the company. Lots of great things I can't mention yet that are coming down the pike, so stay tuned. But if you're looking for a world-class vintage two-stroke, especially a Can-Am, I can't think of you finding a nicer one than this anywhere, a nicer original. Thanks for watching. God bless America.